Hello and welcome to this special edition of To The Point. We have with us Dr. R Chidambaram, who needs really no introduction to Indian audience, Principal Scientific Advisor to the government. Dr. Chidambaram, good to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Prakash.
Dr. Chidambaram, one of the criticisms of Indian technologists is that Indian science and technology policy is done by scientists, not by engineers. And therefore, it has had too much of a scientific orientation, not really a technological orientation. But really, if you look at BARC, it has been also an engineering institution. So how do you react to this?
See, in what we would call a zeroth order approximation, one says the scientists create ideas, engineers create products, innovators create wealth. But the borders are all very fuzzy, particularly when you start working in high technology areas. Mission-oriented agencies, atomic energy or space or defense research, the border between a scientist and engineer is very, very fuzzy. Even among physicists, you have got people who are theoretical physicists, you are experimental physicists, you are technical physics people, and then on engineering side there are people who work in basic engineering science, and a lot of them use so much computers you can hardly distinguish them from physicists when they do simulation and all that. So these borders are to some extent artificial.
Dr. Chidambaram, one of the things that we seem to have problems with, while we have been denied technology, for instance, in nuclear areas, in space, we have really done well. We have been able to create the necessary technologies. But when it comes to mundane, everyday things, we seem to still borrow all our technology from abroad. Why do you think that this is happening?
See, my feeling is things are changing. Things are changing. In a very broad sense, if you look at the knowledge which is there in the academic system and the knowledge which has been transferred to industry, in a developed country the two are in equilibrium. That is why the industry is waiting for new knowledge to come out of the academic system. Naturally, the scientists in India or the people who are working in academic institutions want to be in equilibrium with the academic system in developed countries like the United States or Germany or Europe, other countries in Europe, because they want to publish in leading journals of the world. So as long as Indian industry was a couple of notches lower, what you explained happened. You know, they were not leaning on Indian academic system to develop these products. But if you came to nuclear, partly because of the technology denial scheme, the technology denial actually reinforced our desire for self-reliance in fields like atomic energy and space. The more you deny, the more you are compelled to develop our own technology. That's why in an area like nuclear or some areas of defense or in space, we are almost on par with the developed countries. But in other areas, things are beginning to change rapidly.
You know, when you say in defense, almost 80 to 90%, if not more, of our defense purchases are coming from abroad. So apart from, again, the technology denial areas, missiles and so on, there again we seem to have also not developed indigenous capabilities.
You must distinguish between various areas of defense research. The highest levels, I will say, missiles. All our missiles, whether it is Prithvi that you see in this picture over here, or the varieties of Agni and the other missiles, they are all developed by India, partly because this is an area in which nobody is going to give you technology. Even the aircraft, civilian aircraft industry, if you see, there are only a few companies which are leaders in the whole world. Every country is not producing its own aircraft. But as we go along, hopefully in more and more areas, whether it is defense or automobiles or electronics hardware, hopefully things will begin to change and Indian industry will begin to produce products.
Do you think that we have had a long policy orientation in giving up partially self-reliance in the belief that markets will provide us technology?
See, it's a complex issue. I will say, if you look at the support which the government is giving for research and development, it is significant support, and the Prime Minister wants to raise it from near 1% of GDP to 2%. But all the money in the countries where the R&D expenditure is a larger percentage of the GDP, it is not coming from only the government, it is coming from industry. Say in even an Asian country like South Korea, before that Japan, but industry will invest in research only if it finds something coming out of it. Now, if a couple of months back I inaugurated the Aditya Birla Research Center, which is in near Mumbai, and so the industry is beginning to feel that in-house R&D centers are important. That is only the beginning, but they should also invest in academic institutions, because the level of knowledge which is there in the academic institutions, now I am talking of engineering institutions, IITs and all that, is very high. They are beginning to realize that. And even from my office, we are making efforts to enhance academia industry interactions. Other organizations, CSIR does that, many other places. There is an IIT Madras Technology Research Park, Research and Technology Park, which has come there, which are all symptoms of an enhanced desire of industry.
So basic issue is how to get the industry also to invest in research, come to the academic institution. That is the next challenge. Time for a small break. Keep watching Rajya Sabha TV. Welcome back to this special edition of To The Point. We are with Dr. Chidambaram, and we are going to continue discussing what are the problems of Indian science, particularly industry-academic interactions. Dr. Chidambaram, as a scientific advisor, what has been your attempt to bring these two groups together? Because as you said, this is the real gap in India, has been so for 40 years that I remember.
Yes. See, if you take the chain, research, development and delivery. Delivery is when it finally reaches the user, the product or the process. It is well known that academic institutions are very good in research, poor in delivery. Whereas if you take industry, it is very good in delivery but poor in development and research. So here is a system. When academic institutions are good in research and industry is good in delivery, and in this development process you have to bring them together. So one of the major efforts, not only from my office, all over, is to enhance the interaction between the academic system and the industry. So some years back we started establishing these interfaces in specific technology sectors. And normally it is easy to understand that any sector, technology sector, industry sector, which is beginning to boom, would be interested in getting R&D inputs. And these are the sectors which are likely to, in the long term, to become globally competitive. So in 2003 or thereabouts, we began to feel the automotive sector is going to boom. So we started this core advisory group for automotive research, in which we brought together all the leading players in the Indian industry and the academic systems. These are essentially for what I call pre-competitive applied research, that is looking at generic problems of this industry. If any particular company has to do applied research to improve its own products, it can go to any academic institutions, fund the research there, and this has been going on, particularly for solving specific problems as far as the products are concerned. But that is not something the government need to fund. But if there are generic problems in any industry, then the government has to intervene, like alternate fuels or your combustion, or you take hydroforming, electroforming, lightweight alloys and all that. So these are the ones we concentrated on, this core advisory group was called CAR by my friend Sajid, because TIFAC was the secretariat for that. And though it deals with two-wheelers to heavy vehicles, we have done quite a few projects on that.
Basically, the idea is to get the building blocks, get the institutions involved.
Absolutely.
But that really requires a network of people to come together. The
Yes.
critical issue is really that critical mass of people.
Yes.
Ultimately, the human beings creating technology. How are you doing that?
See, there are, what we do is, these are essentially demand driven. You know, once you have a core advisory group, later we started on, by the way, on machine tools, and now most recently on electronics hardware. They begin to discuss what are those problems in which Indian technology needs to catch up to reach, and perhaps why not surpass global levels. And then we look at which are those companies which should be interested in that kind of thing, and which are the academic institutions which have the competence. When I say academia, I mean both national labs and the universities. For convenience, I use the word academia to and this has been pretty successful. We should be doing it more and more. And as I think India becomes more and more globally competitive in various technologies, this desire for academia industry interaction will go up, because when foreigners give you technology transfer, these are technologies from which they have taken out all the benefits already.
So basically, they'll never give you the cutting edge technology.
They will never give you that. And as I say, the more you look for proven technology, and I have always said that proven technology is often a synonym for obsolete technologies. The more you prove it, the more obsolete it becomes.
But Dr. Chidambaram, there are lots of people who argue that technology is freely available in the market, we can buy it, we don't have to develop it. Do you think this is true?
I don't think so. What is available in the market, see, to take off, you must start to reach the kind of a level, a basic level. You must do that. And often we have found that Indian industry is able to make the same product or the same quality at a much lower cost than, I'm not talking of just labor intensive products. For example, in the Large Hadron Collider, which has found apparently, though it has to be confirmed, the signatures of this Higgs-Boson, that's a $4 billion machine. And India supplied $40 million worth of equipment, estimated at European cost, 1,000 sextupole magnets, a large number of decapole magnets. These are all corrector magnets for the beam. These were made by Indian industry. Indian industry, highly precision engineered, otherwise they won't put it into a multi-billion dollar machine. And that came from the fact that we could make it at a much lower cost than the
Dr. Chidambaram, coming back to the real point that I'm trying to drive at, technology, is there a market for cutting edge technology, or is it something always closely held? And unless we develop it ourselves, and ourselves, the issue is not the government, not the industry, but all of us together. Do you think it can be something that we can really buy off the market?
See, there are intellectual property right issues. Obviously, you will have to pay for, if you want to get some technologies, maybe some component technology. System can be yours. You can buy off component technologies so that the system is assembled by you. That should go on depending on the industry needs. But at the same time, if you want to become a knowledge economy, if you want to become a developed country in the fullest sense of the term, you must have the capability, and I think we have the capability, to develop tomorrow's knowledge.
So that is the real challenge.
That is the real challenge. And the corresponding challenge is we must be able to attract the most talented in science into careers in science. The hemorrhage here is taking place at 2 points. At the +2 level, kids who have passed the +2, who are very good in basic science, go into professional courses. And one of the things which we held from 2004, we have held meetings, we have had discussions, how to attract these people to careers in science. For that, you must assure them a career. So, the INSPIRE program of the Department of Science and Technology does do this. And if you come to engineering, the second hemorrhage is taking place at the BTech, MTech level.
MBAs.
People who are obviously good in engineering research are going into careers, taking up jobs or taking up careers in
investment
management.
banking.
Perhaps some of them are going abroad, and we have a solution for that. We had a brainstorming in my office, and I remember Mr. J.J. Irani from Tata Steel, Tata Sons. He and I wrote to all the companies in India with the following prescription. See, when these large companies go for placement interviews, hire a number of people, the creamy layer among them, you give them job salaries, but let them work with a professor for whom you have respect, in a broad area of interest to the company. Not problem solving, it is too restrictive. This young guy, boy or girl, is no different from any other student of the professor. Now the professor becomes your partner. The young fellow is listening to conversations that are taking place between a professor here and a professor from abroad. And when the two professors talk to each other, they tell each other everything. Unlike company scientists, when they talk to each other, they tell each other nothing because of these commercial reasons, intellectual property issues and all that. And I am told Tatas are beginning to use this.
Time to take a short break. We'll come back shortly. Don't go away. Welcome back to the special edition of To the Point. We are with Dr. Chidambaram. Dr. Chidambaram, bringing people together, there is something called the Knowledge Initiative that you have started. What could you tell us something about it, how this could bring the larger community together in India?
See, to do good science and technology, e-science infrastructure, e-research infrastructure is also very important. So the government has started a national knowledge network, and the plan is to connect something like 1,500 knowledge institutions in India, all universities, all national laboratories, in a single high-speed optical fiber network, high bandwidth network. And here what we have done is this optical fiber, there is a backbone which will go to something like at the moment 10 gigaflops, 10 gigabits per second, and which will go on to 100 gigabits per when finally it concludes. And from each one of these POPs you connect the edge institutions at 1 gigabit per second to start with. If the demand goes, we can
so you have a very high bandwidth connectivity which brings institutions together. Is it getting the institutions to work together?
Yes. You see, we can use it in various ways. You can create virtual classrooms, lectures given in one place, heard in another place. There are very specialized areas in which there is fragmented faculty. That is, capabilities exist in various institutions. You can bring all of them together. And students are in all these places, faculty is also in all these places. You can create grids for special areas like climate change. You bring all those people who work in climate change or the Ministry of Earth Sciences and maybe some of the other academic institutions. You can have a brain grid. All people working on brain research, dementia, Alzheimer's, all those sharing MRI images, clinical data.
Dr. Chidambaram, it's possible to bring all these people together if you have.
What I am telling you is what is already happening.
Yes.
What is already happening. See, the project, the NCAN project, National Knowledge Network project, is only to provide connectivity. But we said people may not be able to be aware of the power of this connectivity unless we take up model projects. And what I have done is already in place. The brain grid, you see there is a cancer grid. We are also, for example, able to use this net. We are connected to the European Union grid. All the data which I was talking about, the Higgs-Boson, that data from the Large Hadron Collider, was flowing into India at high speed to the scientists who were involved. Tata Institute of Fundamental Research was leading the group in which many universities are involved, what they call the CMS detector, which found the signatures of the so-called Higgs-Boson. Hopefully it will be confirmed by further analysis of data. Or protein crystallographers in India are now able to reach the synchrotron source in Grenoble in France, the European synchrotron radiation facility, sitting in Bombay or Calcutta or Bangalore. That is, what you do is you send your protein crystals first. A robotics arm brings it to the X-ray beamline. You look at the quality of the diffraction data you are getting, sitting in your own lab.
So you're essentially doing remote research, sitting here using other people's facilities.
Essentially, what we would call, there are two ways one can do this. One is access to remote advanced facilities, is one kind of thing. Other one is data sharing across laboratories, across even international borders.
Dr. Chidambaram, the key issue is it giving a fillip for Indian researchers to come together and create new knowledge? And are you happy with the pace at which it is happening? Do you think it is slow, or do you think a lot more needs to be done?
To push what one would call an excellent research and innovation ecosystem, it has a number of components. Talented young people, which I explained. You must get the most talented in science or engineering into these fields. Secondly, you must have adequate funds for doing this. You must have advanced experimental facilities. Now, all this, which will lead to good science and development of technology, is assisted by the existence of this e-research infrastructure. And you can also have physical networking, meetings. That's what takes place in meetings, people meeting each other, groups applying for projects, not just one lab, but multiple labs applying, working on the same thing. Or you develop a subsystem in engineering using the National Knowledge Network. A man makes a change in in the design at one place, because of the low latency of the network, it goes into all the place. This is already beginning to happen.
But are we getting cutting-edge research results from India commensurate with the kind of investment we are making, or do you think there is really something that still needs to be done, or something that's lacking?
See, two things I would like to comment on this. One is, of course, one can say how we won Nobel Prizes in India. But then we had our Ashok Sen from the Harish Chandra Institute, who just now got one of the fundamental physics prizes for his extraordinary work on string theory, which is different from the standard model. Monetary value, I am told it is 3 times the Nobel Prize values. So there are people of that type who are doing excellent individual research in small groups. My feeling is more and more of them will get international recognition. So the way we do science has also changed, and you must factor that into when we do an analysis. And one more thing I must say is that you must look at the progress of science in this country in all its dimensions. Basic research you measure by papers or individual recognition. Industry-oriented research by the kind of patents that you get, by the kind of innovations that you can produce. But the success in high technology areas, what is the measure when you say that the project Chandrayaan has been so successful, or we say that Agni 4 missile or 5 missile, whatever it has been launched perfectly, or in our own atomic energy, our own individually designed prototype fast breeder reactor will go into operation very soon. And then, of course, applications of science and technology for rural development. All these must be factored in when you look at, when you evaluate Indian science.
Dr. Chidambaram, last point. Do you think we lack innovative capacity because of the kind of education system we have, which is really rote learning, and we haven't changed the fundamental educational system in the schools?
I think that the system has to be There is no question that has to be improved. And in this whole thing, in my opinion, we must begin to respect and reward school teachers, because that is where we start. We start with elementary education, which we must improve. Then we go to higher technical education, then you go to research, then you go to technology development. So you must make those careers in school teaching attractive. And one must only say that I don't think creativity is destroyed. After all, the same guys, when they reach our higher technical institutions, are they go as innovative as anybody else in the world. So when you claim that your Venki Ramakrishnan has got a Nobel Prize in I think chemistry, or somebody else has done excellent work in some other area, or Chandrasekhar in the old days, our education system but must be improved. But it probably, in a manner of speaking, temporarily suppresses creativity.
Well, if you don't teach them to think originally for themselves, I'm sure it takes a lot of effort to make them think originally once you come to higher research. So that problem, temporary suspension, as you say, it is a problem.
It's temporary, but I don't think if you bring the talented, we are also looking for gifted children, by the way. We have taken up a small project in NIAS in Bangalore, particularly people from rural areas or disadvantaged sections of society. That is as innovative, as creative as anybody else. So we are looking at all that, and I'm sure systems are in place. Only they have to be tweaked a little bit and improved a little bit.
That's what somebody said. How many Einsteins in each generation doesn't get to learn physics because they don't even have education? Thank you, Dr. Chidambaram. This is all the time we have for this edition of To the Point. See you next time.